In fact, in one of the meetings, the IGAD, we put it to Field Marshal Bashir. We called it DOP, Declaration of Principles. We say either you choose a Sudan which is secular, which does not talk about your religion and your tribe, talks about all Sudanese, or you allow the Southerners to go away. It was called self-determination. And Bashir chose the latter. Said, let them go. I cannot compromise on my identity. So this misuse of identity is a very big poison. The issue of identity eventually broke up the Sudan. Your Excellency, President Salva Kiir Mayardit, Excellency Vice President Taban, Excellency Vice President Wani, and all the other state leaders of South Sudan, the President Festus Mohai, all the delegates to the National Dialogue, and members of the Diplomatic Corps. Africa was the origin of man. Human beings started here 4.5 million years ago. Even these Europeans you see were formerly Africans. Africa was the pioneer of civilization. The ambassador of Ethiopia is talking about civilization, but civilization started here in Africa, in Egypt. It was the first country to have civilization. All the great religions of the world today have a connection with Africa. When the Jews wanted to kill Moses, who rescued him? Africa. When baby Jesus was born, and Herod wanted to kill him, where did they hide him? Africa. When Muhammad had problems with his Arabs, where did he run? Africa. However, Africa has been going down. Especially in the last 500 years, Africa has had a lot of problems. When the Europeans were blocked by the Turks, when the Turkish captured Constantinople in 1453, the Europeans could no longer go to the east. The Chinese president now recently had a conference in China trying to open that Silk Road, the road from China to the west, for trade. That road was blocked by the Turks when they captured Constantinople in 1453. Then the Europeans had to look for a route around Africa to go to the east, to go to India, to go to China. That was our misfortune. As soon as the Europeans got to West Africa, the Portuguese, around 1472, they started taking slaves, African slaves. Therefore, in the last 500 years, Africa has had the problem of the slave trade, has had the problem of colonialism, has had the problem of neo-colonialism, of marginalization, of underdevelopment, of dictatorships, of civil wars, of failed states, of starvation and death, of refugees. All these have been happening in the last 500 years to the Africans. By 1900, the whole of Africa had been colonized, except for Ethiopia. So we must ask ourselves, what is the problem in Africa? Why could people who are the original stock of the human beings be in all these problems? In the last 50 years, almost 60 now, I've been active on the African scene. I've been watching. There are essentially three problems which I have seen. Problem number one, misuse of identity. Misuse of identity. I am a Catholic. In Uganda, we had that problem. When we got independence, our leaders got it wrong. Even before independence, they had started. Because they didn't have what tell the people to go to a hospital when you are not a doctor, and then patients come. You are not able to understand the disease. So you say you have been bewitched. You tell the patient, the person who is suffering, you say you have been bewitched because you don't know what the problem is. So our leaders, in the case of Uganda, they said, we are Catholics. So the Catholics formed a Catholic party called DP, Democratic Party, but democratic for the Catholics. The other group, the Protestants, formed a party called UPC, Uganda People's Congress. One of the tribes, the Baganda, formed a party called Kabaka Yeka. Kabaka is the chief king of Buganda. So, Uganda was paralyzed. Not only paralyzed, but endangered by this misuse of identity. We are Catholics, we are Protestants, we are Baganda, we are Chodi, we are this. This I have not seen only in Uganda. Sudan here, your Sudan, was broke up by this problem. because your people in the north, they said they were Arabs. When you look at them, you try to see how Arab they are, you don't see it. You see a black man saying he's an Arab. But I don't see your Arabism. No, I am an Arab. Okay, that's your problem. I remember we tried to negotiate, to mediate between John Garang and Al-Hajj. I was involved in that. Why do you insist on your identity at the expense of other people? Why don't you make the whole of the Sudan neutral as far as identity is concerned? I remember one time I gave them the example of a student dormitory. When you are staying in a dormitory, in some schools you have some cubicles. Cubicles are small rooms where students 2 or 3 stay. But then they have a common room where they gather. There are things they can do in their cubicle, but which they should not do in the common room here. The common room should be for the radio, for the TV. These days, at that time there was no TV, it was many radios, for the newspapers. Then your own things, brushing your teeth and all that, you do it in your cubicle. But you come here in the common room, you start brushing your teeth. We are not interested in brushing your teeth. It's not our common interest. But the issue of identity eventually broke up the Sudan. In fact, in one of the meetings, we put it to Field Marshal Bashir. We called it DOP, Declaration of Principles. We say either you choose a Sudan which is secular, which does not talk about your religion and your tribe, talks about all Sudanese, or you allow the Southerners to go away. It was called self-determination. And Bashir chose the latter. Said, let them go. I cannot compromise on my identity. So this misuse of identity is a very big poison. But the second problem, yes, in some cases, identity can be important. Like in the case of the Sudan. Because in 1961, when I went to the secondary school, I met youth from South Sudan who were in Uganda as refugees. And I asked them, why are you running away? They said the Arabs are killing us. They don't allow us to speak our language. They don't allow us to practice our culture. I was mobilized. I was so angry. Who can stop me from speaking my language? Who can do it? You are looking for trouble to stop me to speak my language? Who are you? Are you God? So from that time, I knew that there was a problem of identity in the Sudan here. And it had to be solved. It could have been solved, but they didn't solve it. In South Africa, we had a problem of identity. Because the whites said Africans cannot vote because they don't know how to vote properly. If we give them a vote, they will misuse it. So we better stop, they should not be allowed to vote. And for almost a century, we're on that issue. At one time, they were even saying that Africans cannot go to certain bars, certain toilets. So I asked the blacks, why do you fight for the toilets for the whites? If they want to have their own toilets, why do you? What privilege is it to sit on the same toilet with a white man? How does it improve my status, my welfare? Therefore, in the case of South Sudan, in the case of Sudan here, in the case of South Africa, the issue in the case of the United States, you remember our African people there, the black people, were being discriminated in the United States. They couldn't ride in certain buses. So in some cases, the problem of identity becomes serious, and it needs to be addressed. However, for most of the time, the issue of identity is misused. Like in the case of Uganda, the way our leaders were misleading us. I am not only concerned about identity, I am concerned about my prosperity. What will make me prosperous? What will make my family prosperous? What will make my company prosperous? If I say I am a Mnyankore, that's my tribe. Okay, thank you very much. But how will you pay your school fees for the children? How will you build a better house for yourself? How will you get yourself for means of transport? The Banyankore cannot help me. I happen to be a cattle keeper, and my prosperity is based on cows. Therefore, the one to help me in my prosperity is the one who buys the cows. And the Banyankore don't buy the cows, because they also have cows. They have cows, I have cows. I have milk, they have milk. They can't buy from me, I cannot buy from them. The people who rescue me, who make me prosperous, are actually the people of Kampala. The ones who are not Banyankore, they are the ones who buy my milk, who buy my beef, who buy my bananas. Even you people here, you are helping my prosperity. You have seen our longhorn cows here. You have seen the bananas. Thank you so much for supporting my prosperity. Are you Banyankore? Now, if I stand up and I form a Banyankore party, I would be the most unwise person, because I would be antagonizing the people who support my prosperity. I would be excluding the people who support my prosperity and going with this Banyankore. We speak the same language, Agandi or Ereje. Very good, thank you very much. But how about your prosperity? Banyankore support help me in only one way. I have cows, they have cows. I produce milk, they produce milk. So the volumes of milk are huge in our area. So marketing is easy. In that way, the Banyankore help me. I thank them for that. But beyond that, my saviors for my prosperity are the people of Uganda, especially the non-Banyankore, are the people of East Africa who buy our products. So therefore, this question of emphasizing identity and you forget interest is a very big mistake. And it is the one which was responsible for our colonization in the first place. Because when the Europeans were coming, we could have defeated them. Those Europeans at that time had no very modern technology. But our chiefs were too full of themselves We had a small king in my area there, but he would be called Rubambansi in our local language, means the controller of the whole world. That's small king there of ours, that Rubambansi, the controller of the whole world. Stays there, putting on very elaborate clothing, very good. So those chiefs did not unite us. That's how we were colonized. Some of the people who were colonized did not survive. They perished. If you go to America today, you look for the original Americans, they are not there. These people you call Americans now, these are Europeans who went and took the land of the indigenous Indians of America. They perished. They disappeared. In North America, they disappeared. In the Caribbean, they disappeared. In South America, I can see some of them beginning to come up now in some of the countries. Here, fortunately, Africans do not die easily. So we survived. We survived the diseases of the Europeans. We survived the genocides, the wars. We survived the slave trade. You can imagine, we are tough people. We survived by the strength of our civilization. We are civilized people. The population are civilized. They know how to produce wealth, agriculture, livestock. This artisanship. The population is very strong. But the problem has been always we, the leaders. The traditional chiefs, and now the modern political leaders. So therefore, when you ask me to come here, then the third problem, because you make problem on number one, mistake on number one, identity, then you make problem, you forget prosperity, you forget interest. Now a third problem comes in. Backwardness in technology and science. The Africans were the vanguard of civilization, but we are now far behind in technology. This is very dangerous. Now, in the case of Uganda, what helped us was that in the 1960s, we formed a patriotic student movement which believed in one, patriotism. We opposed this politics of identity. And we opposed, we went for the politics of Pan-Africanism. That's how we were able eventually to defeat the sectarian groups in Uganda. Even now they are still there. When we go for elections, they still come up, but we always defeat them democratically. 70%, 60-something%, we always defeat them. They are still there. But we defeat them democratically by reasoning with our people, strengthening our cadreship, although we also have some weaknesses, but we have managed to rescue Uganda by defeating these politicians who use identity because they have nothing better to tell the people. So therefore, I normally hear people talking about this group, that group, the youth. But we are not talking about biology here. We are talking about ideology. When you say youth, you can have youth who are ancient in ideas. We are talking about ideas. We are not talking about this group, that group, young or old. So therefore, I commend His Excellency Salva Kiir for this national dialogue. That's why I came to also lend my hand, my words to this effort. I salute President Salva Kiir for inviting all these stakeholders here and saying you discuss the problems that have afflicted South Sudan in the recent times. SPLM is a very strong party, a very strong movement. In the referendum, and it had the respect of the people of South Sudan. In the referendum, you got 99% or something like that. When President Salva Kiir was elected, he was elected with 90-something%. This is very good political capital, which you cannot squander. If you squander it, you will be blamed by history. So you need to revive the SPLM. And we doubt all those ideas that are subversive to your vision, which you started with. That's why the people of South Sudan were supporting you, all of them. When I hear talking about Dinka, I don't know, the Nuer, these Equatorians, Shiruk, where did you get the 99%? Was it one tribe? It wasn't one tribe. It was the whole population. So how can you let them down? Now, when you come to, then there's also another madness in Africa. The political leaders think on about political and administrative positions. They don't remember the private sector. They don't know that if you don't have a strong private sector, the country cannot grow. Now, when you have sustained war in a place, the private sector will go away. And if it goes away, you will have no money to run the government or to create jobs. So when you are doing all this, peace talks, I don't know, interim government, I don't know, all this patchwork, remember each day that passes, you are chasing away the private sector. And the private sector are the ones to create jobs for your children, to put money in the government. So people should not only think about government positions, ministers and permanent secretaries. The private sector. And the private sector is very, very scared of war and conflict. You are going to make your country lose many decades of development. If Uganda had not had all these endless problems with Idi Amin and all those people, Uganda would be a first world country now. But we lost. In 1962, Uganda was about the same level as South Korea. But we squandered that chance. In South Korea, they actually make coups and so on, but they do them cleverly. Quickly, you arrest one person, finished, and the whole things go on. But here, people dying, villages, what? In Africa. That's what the problem of Uganda. Uganda, we missed because our leaders did not know where wealth comes from. Wealth does not come from the government, it comes from the private sector. If you stop the private sector, there will be no wealth for that country. Now, that is on the issue of ideology. But how about organizational issues? of the party. Because the party must be organized. Within the party, speak frankly. Because sometimes you hear people talking, but they don't speak frankly within the party. Call a meeting of the party instead of grumbling on the side. Call a meeting like you have now come. Speak frankly to each other. Reach decisions either by voting or by consensus. Have regular meetings if it's a political party. Always raise issues in the forum, in the proper forum. Don't go outside and start grumbling. I wanted to say this, but I didn't want to say it. Then why are you saying it on the side? If you didn't sit in the meeting, then keep quiet. Or going and speaking in public. Insist on a meeting of the party organs. Never use force. This using of force, you see, force is like a surgery. Surgery is force. The surgeon cuts you, but he cuts you very, very carefully. He first identifies the sickness by X-ray. He sees the sick part, which is sick, and only goes for that. And even then, when he has no other alternative, when the tablets cannot work, when the injections cannot work, that's when he goes for surgery. But if you are, every time there is a headache case, I cut you, then you are not a surgeon, you are a butcher. So that use of violence in every situation, violence. Violence should be a means of last resort and targeted, not indiscriminate. Tolerating impunity, that's also another big danger, impunity. When people make mistakes, especially in Africa here, three problems: killings, rape, defilement. Our army, the UPDF, is the one which built Uganda. Because Uganda had failed, just like you see some of the countries which have failed. But the NRM, the UPDF, we were calling it NRA at that time, led by us, we revived Uganda by very strict discipline. You kill a person, we kill you. In public, shoot you. When we shot the first group of 3 soldiers in 1983 in a small town called Semuto, who had killed people, and we tried them in our high command. There was somebody who had studied law at Makerere. He was with us. Then, because the soldiers who shot people were drunk, they had drunk alcohol and they were drunk. So this lawyer, Bush lawyer, tried to tell us that no, when they killed somebody, they were under the influence of alcohol, so they were not responsible. So we said, where do we find the beer now to shoot it? Since you are the vehicle of the beer, we'll shoot you in public. But that's what actually made the NRA. When we shot those 3 soldiers in public, where they had committed the mistake, the Baganda people who were in that area said, Bando Balinamazima. These are people of the truth, that we are people who are truthful. That's what built the NRA, how we gained the reputation. So killing, raping, you rape a woman, unakola risasi. We shoot you. Because raping is murder, especially these days. With AIDS and all this, with hepatitis, how you have killed that person. The one involved must be shot. The defilement. That's very, very important in terms of gaining the reputation for the population. When we are doing all this, my comrades, the other day I was with the Al Jazeera, and they were asking me questions. In Africa, they are always talking about who is in power, who is in power. Who? I said, why do you always ask about only who? Why don't you ask what? What is to be done? Nobody talks about that. As soon as you come, the question is who? Who should be in power? Who should be in power? Why don't you start with the what, and the what will give you the who? I'm very glad you invited me to come to this dialogue. I congratulate President Salva for killing you, for calling you. Not killing you. for calling you. I was hearing the names. I knew a few of them. I think this is really, and you have very good spokesmen, Mzee Aber Ariel, and the other new man whom I didn't know, the very good speaker from the Azande people. I think you seem you are on the right course, and for me, I support you. I did not discuss this with the East African community. I'm now chairman. They put me there yesterday. But I did not tell them that I was coming to this conference. But I came in my capacity as a freedom fighter and as president of Uganda. I thank you. I thank President Salva, and I wish you good luck. Thank you so much.